Right now, there are fierce battles on the front line. Something unexpected happened in the Zaporizhzhia direction. Artillery and drones roasted the occupiers from all sides. They are trying to urgently destroy the shocking video, and the Kremlin is furious. Extremely powerful strikes on the defenses. All this is covered in our episode Hellpoint. They shell with grads and then launch assaults. This is the tactic the occupiers have adopted on the Velikomikhaylovka section of the front. Our defenders are steadfastly holding their positions and sending fiery greetings to the enemy with drones. Buggies, motorcycles and ATVs turn into scrap metal after these greetings. As for the enemy's manpower, there's hardly anything left to say. For more details on how our guys operate where the enemy is breathing down their necks, watch the report straight from the front lines. In just a moment.
Even in sunny weather, there's a regular hailstorm here these days.
Were you watching something just now?
The longest I sat was an hour and a half under a hailstorm.
It's like this almost every morning. Yeah, here, well, that never changes. First they fire grad rockets, then they attempt an assault. I see this when
they're storming. I can see it across the fields. There were 40 pieces of equipment. We had to fight them off.
That strike drone crew from the 71st Jaeger Brigade is sharing their impressions of the recent battles south of Kostiantynivka. And overall, the soldiers admit every day, on the Velikomikhaylovka section of the front now feels almost like a carbon copy of the last.
It all just keeps going, but it depends on the assaults. When the weather is bad, if the weather is bad, you can already expect that something will definitely be creeping up. Sova, do you copy?
They're hitting to the north. That's the Berlatsky area.
Either a tank or some kind of armored vehicle is moving.
Look, Sova, come on, there are motorcycles heading that way.
Can we drag a mine over there? We can barely manage it. Go straight for it. All right, we see them. We engaged. Did you hit it? Yes.
In theory, their hideouts and drone launch positions should be out of range of enemy weapons. But the front line is very dynamic now, say the Ranger paratroopers, so sometimes as Kesha, the relay drone pilot of the 71st crew, admits anything can happen.
First, the mortar fired. Then, a couple of FPV drones hit the neighboring house. And then, closer to noon, a tank decided to fire at our position.
And when the Russians once again in a day try to storm the Ukrainian defensive line south of the National Highway N15, barely paying attention to the grad explosions, somewhere nearby, a crew is preparing another drone for launch.
Let's go.
As soon as, for the 8th time this morning, a Ukrainian FPV drone took off, the guys set out for the 8th time to destroy Russian motorcyclists.
Mostly they move around in buggies, on ATVs, hauling both infantry and ammunition in trailers. 2. On bar target. Please record the video now, carefully and thoroughly. Make sure to capture everything.
There was a gap. There is a gap.
Right there, between the two trees. More to the right. By these ones? Yes. Even more to the right. Go in between the two, right? Go in.
Forrest, should I repeat for you or for now?
They deliver supplies and handle logistics on motorcycles. We observe them every day.
Actually, Monk is being a bit sly. The Rangers don't just observe the enemy's movements. Even a single Russian infantryman, armed and trying to move toward Ukrainian positions, does not escape the attention of the pilots of the 71st.
More to the right, more to the right. There he is, look. We engaged them. They were trying to get closer to us.
Usually he directs his pilot toward the target about 15 times per shift, says Sova, the navigator of the 71st Combat Crew.
If it's an active day, well, I think there can be up to 16 drones or so. Monak, is he on your left side behind you? Yes, we're catching him at the intersection. We see him.
But there are days when the Russians attack non-stop, and then we have to prepare additional drones.
Are the drones ready?
The drones are ready, and when we take off, we rearm them again to make sure we have the necessary amount of ammunition.
And they're flying out toward the assault groups of the occupiers much more often now.
Straight ahead. Just right above that.
Give me the altitude.
We're heading home now. There are really fierce battles going on near the settlement.
The fiercest fighting, says Monarch, just after taking off his goggles following another successful sortie, is now taking place near the Mokry Yali and Vorona rivers. But in the area of responsibility of the 71st, at least for now, the Ranger paratroopers are not allowing the Russians to break through toward the Zaporizhzhia region.
The LBZ isn't moving anymore. We've been here for 3 months already and the LBZ hasn't moved.
Reporting from the front line in the Veliko-Mikhailivka sector, this is Alexander Motorny, Alexander Shian, and Serhiy Shportilo for TSN 1+1, United News Marathon.
And for even more high-profile events from the life of Ukraine and the world, follow the Times of Ukraine Telegram channel. Only the latest news and verified information. See the link in the video description. Meanwhile, in the Zaporizhzhia direction, the enemy's hell assaults do not stop for a moment. The cynicism of Putin's army is off the charts. The enemy continued to level Orikhiv to the ground despite the ceasefire. The armed forces of Ukraine steadfastly withstand all the enemy's tricks and strike back at the occupiers. Precise strikes and foiled plans. After that, Putin's soldiers ran away. What happened? All the details coming up in just a moment.
These are the gas charges that go off, and they will release a gas, just like the kind they use to create smoke on stage.
Silyi, a 48-year-old paramedic, shows what the occupiers are now throwing at the heads of our defenders. These are chemical grenades, manufactured in 2024.
Well, it paralyzes, it affects your breathing, everything stings, your eyes start to water, and even if it's in a room that has aired out afterwards, the residue still remains on things. If you touch it with your hands and then rub your eyes or face, it burns a lot. Your eyes water, and as for breathing, it just shuts it down.
This is what the morning of the first day of the ceasefire looked like. The enemy is launching an assault, trying to gain a foothold somewhere near our positions.
So they used the first ceasefire as an opportunity to sneak in their groups, to check things out, see what was going on, and then as soon as the ceasefire ended, they immediately attacked. That's why this time that kind of move that didn't work for them again.
Vitaly took off his uniform, washed up, and had something to eat. If you're lucky, it's only from scratch. There are swarms of enemy drones and assault troops, artillery fire covering entire sectors, and it's basically a lottery. Those soon, that's what going in and out of positions is like.
My sunset dragged on for a day, because after yet another assault, they started shelling again. Just their usual preventive measures, and so on. They didn't succeed at anything, so I had to stay longer. But the guys managed. Well done. The hardest part for them about getting in is delivering supplies. We carry everything in by hand.
And this is what the end of an enemy assault looks like. The enemy is eliminated in the basements of Robotine, where they gather, and in the surrounding tree lines.
The assaults absolutely do not stop. They constantly conduct reconnaissance in force, sending out small groups of 2, 3, 4, or 5 men, depending on the situation and the positions. Well, and in this way they mark our positions. They come a group of 2 or 3 men, and accordingly we open fire, which reveals our positions, and then things get more intense at the position, because they start leveling it to the ground.
Ihor, with the call sign Hrisha, is originally from Ternopil. He worked abroad in Britain and Poland, but quit his job and returned to Ukraine. He went from being an assault trooper to becoming an officer.
Well, I don't even know. At first, at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, I was heading out with a specific goal: to take apart the paving stones on Red Square, register as a sole proprietor, and sell them. Well, now the situation has changed a bit. I don't know. I'll just act according to the circumstances. Well, I won't be filming weddings with a drone, because that's not the kind of profession this is. Infantry is a bit of a different line of work. Well, honestly, I haven't really thought about it yet. For now, the task is to finish what we've started. We need to win.
In addition to infantry assaults, there have also been strikes with Kabis. 500-kilogram aerial bombs are destroying the tree lines in the fields and the city of Orikhiv. There isn't a single undamaged house left in Orikhiv. Entire streets have been destroyed. The occupiers have intensified their attacks on the city, both artillery and airstrikes. All around, everywhere, there are fragments from artillery, shells lying about. The city is under constant fire from both artillery and drones. That's why it's dangerous for local people to stay outside in Orikhiv for long. The city's streets are overgrown with greenery, with ruins sinking into it. Only dogs and cats are left on the streets. Grandma Helena is 77. Here in the city, she is alone. Her children are in Zaporizhzhia. She doesn't want to leave Kogo because she has a garden and animals that neighbors abandoned and that need to be fed.
When it hit, I stayed at my daughter's for 3 weeks, but now, there are other people's dogs and cats here, and they need to be fed. So I came back and now I take care of Olha's garden and my own. But my leg hurts.
In Orikhiv, people live without electricity, gas or water. They survive on humanitarian aid, and whatever they grow themselves, they eat what they harvest. Valerie drives around the streets to fill up the tanks with vital liquid, plain water. Here, it's worth its weight in gold.
Once a week when there's trouble, we always bring it here. Sometimes, now water consumption has increased, and sometimes we have to deliver to the same spot twice a week.
Sometimes it's a whole cubic meter, sometimes 500 liters, sometimes 200. The minimum is 200.
In the apartment buildings, people have to carry it up a floor, sometimes even 2. Russian aviation is bombing them during this 3-day false ceasefire. Civilians are still alive because outside the city, the sky above their heads is protected by those who haven't given up and since the 22nd have been defending Orikhiv with weapons in hand. Ruslan Yermolyuk, Mikhailo Putyata, TSN 1+1 Marathon, United News, from the Orikhiv direction.
New weapons are entering the fight on the front line. Now, the fury of the Ukrainian people will be doubled. Russians, get ready. Just one sound from them and that's it. On the Lyman-Kupiansk front, the occupiers have really been forced down. An unknown force is mowing them down right in the middle of their assaults. For details on how the so-called truce played out at the front, watch our report right now.
The National Guard of Ukraine relies not only on strength, but also on intelligence. The BM-21 Grad combat vehicle, which since Soviet times has remained a symbol of artillery power, is now being transformed into a true digital tool of high-precision warfare. Thanks to a thorough modernization from the chassis to the latest electronics, the Grad has been given a new lease on life. Now it is capable not just of shelling an area, but of striking specific targets with minimal time expenditure. Automated control, remote targeting, and an increased ammunition load. All of this allows for destroying the enemy faster, more accurately, and with greater autonomy. And while the equipment continues to improve, true stories of heroism are being written on the battlefield. Nurse Svetlana, who not long ago was saving the wounded at Mechnikov Hospital, today saved an entire unit on the front line. During a brutal Russian attack, she took command herself. And when the situation threatened complete encirclement, she personally destroyed a group of occupiers with a grenade launcher. Svetlana had only ever fired a weapon at the shooting range. This was her first battle. Since the beginning of the full-scale war, she volunteered, because she had worked as a nurse in the intensive care unit at Mechnikov Hospital in Dnipro. Svetlana's son, also a volunteer, was killed in battle near Bakhmut. Svetlana was awarded the Cross of the Land Forces. However, she noted that she felt awkward about it, since she already has 2 gold crosses of the 1st and 2nd class, while, to quote her, some people have been nominated so many times and still haven't received one. On the Lyman-Kupiansk axis, the intensity of assaults by the occupiers has somewhat decreased, but this is definitely not the result of any kind of truce. Here and further along the front, it's not a pause at work, but rather a reformatting of tactics. In the Kharkiv direction, the situation is under the full control of the 92nd Brigade. The enemy is not conducting active assaults, instead they are sporadically striking with FPV drones and artillery. They strike but without any results. The positions are being held firmly. The enemy has not used heavy equipment for a long time, except for the occasional motorcycle, which Ukrainian soldiers destroy even as they approach. Against this backdrop, the drone war is intensifying more and more clearly. Ground operations are limited. Anything more than an infantry raid is only possible at night. Both sides can literally see each other from the sky. Ukrainian UAVs are actively restraining the enemy's maneuvers, but tension is rising in the Vovchansk direction. There are no mechanized attacks, but infantry and motorcycle groups are attacking constantly, without respite. What is especially concerning is that enemy FPV drones have started operating at greater distances, increasing the risks along the line of contact. The front is changing and increasingly shifting toward a war of machines. In the southern direction, Ukrainian defense forces are carrying out relentless, devastating work, methodically killing the enemy from their positions, destroying both equipment and command structures. In just one day, the enemy lost over 100 soldiers, several tanks, air defense systems, and a whole range of technical equipment supporting combat operations. According to the command, in the past 24 hours alone, 120 occupiers were eliminated, along with 2 tanks, 9 artillery systems, 29 units of automotive and armored vehicles, and 3 air defense systems, 5 drones of various types, 8 motorcycles, 1 buggy, and 4 boats. But the strike was not limited to just personnel and equipment. Critically important elements of the Russian army's logistics and command also came under fire. 3 electronic warfare stations were destroyed, along with 11 communication and UAV antennas, surveillance cameras, 4 generators, 2 ammunition depots, and another logistics facility. Additionally, 70 enemy shelters and 3 observation posts were reduced to rubble. Ukrainian units are not only holding the line of defense, they are actively destroying the enemy's rear infrastructure, depriving them of eyes, communications, and cover. Overall, the situation is as follows. Ukraine continues to hold back the enemy's offensive actions, as the adversary has intensified its activity on several fronts at once. In the first half of the day, 69 combat engagements were recorded, some of which are still ongoing. In the north, the situation is as follows. Chernihiv and Sumy regions are under artillery and mortar fire. Boyaru-Lezhachi was attacked from the air. In the Kharkiv region, the attack on Vovchansk continues. Ukrainian forces are holding the defense. In the Kupiansk direction, there were 2 enemy attacks in the areas of Pischane and Novi Sinevyi. Both were unsuccessful. In the Lyman direction, the occupiers carried out 7 assaults. 2 battles are ongoing. The enemy is trying to advance near Rydkodub, Torske, and Olhivka. In the Siversk direction, Bessy, there were 5 attacks in the areas of Bilohorivka and Hrihorivka. 1 clash is still ongoing. In the Kramatorsk direction, the enemy is assaulting near Vasyukivka and Chasiv Yar. The armed forces are holding the defense. In the Turetsk direction, an attack near Delivka was repelled. The Pokrovsk direction remains the hottest, with 29 breakthrough attempts. In the areas of Nova Poltavka, Mirnograd, Lysivka, Vdakhne, and Andrivka, fierce fighting is ongoing there. 23 attacks have already been repelled. Poltavka and Pokrovsk have suffered airstrikes. In the Novopavlivka direction, there have been 11 assaults, 3 of which are still ongoing. Fighting is taking place for Constantinople, Bohatyr, and Novosilki. The situation in the Zaporizhzhia direction is as follows. In the Huliaipol area, the enemy has increased its use of aviation but is not launching assaults. In the Orikhiv area, there were 3 attacks in the regions of Malatokmachka and Sherbaki without effect. In the Kursk direction, 6 battles took place, 2 of which are currently in an active phase. 5 airstrikes were carried out, specifically 10 guided aerial bombs were launched, and there were 161 B-4 shellings. The defense is holding. Ukrainian forces are holding back the pressure and striking back, destroying enemy equipment and personnel. That's all for today. Tune in tomorrow for the next update.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
This is a real fire tornado on the front line. The Bodana artillery system is terrorizing the Russians. Born in war, tested in battle. Shot after shot, there is no time to rest. Our troops are pounding the occupiers. The equipment relentlessly sends out shells, hinting that this is what revenge looks like. How did Ukrainian forces manage to tame this beast? And how does it bare its teeth right on the battlefield? All the details coming up in just a moment.
Armata!
This is the Ukrainian self-propelled artillery system Bodana, 12 meters long and 3 meters high. The brand new self-propelled guns are already actively destroying the enemy at the front. This particular self-propelled gun is mounted on a Czech Tatra chassis. The 44th Separate Artillery Brigade uses it to destroy the enemy.
It loads quickly, but it's a bit heavy because you have to lift the shells, as you saw, almost up to your shoulder. The higher the elevation, the easier it is to load. The lower the elevation, the harder it is to load.
The guys mostly load the gun by hand. It can be done automatically too, but that takes much longer. The self-propelled gun destroys targets at distances of up to several dozen kilometers.
If it's a high explosive fragmentation shell, according to the specs, up to 30 kilometers. But in reality, it probably reaches 28 or 27. If it's a rocket-assisted shell, then the specs say up to 40 kilometers.
Each shell weighs between 40 and 47 kilograms.
Our task is to hit the target with the minimum number of shots. That's all there is to it. For that, you need to weigh all the shells, at least some of them for the job, and the gunpowder must definitely be weighed as well.
Volodymyr is the one who drives the soldiers to their combat mission. He used to work abroad, but when the full-scale invasion began, he returned to Ukraine and went to the front the very next day.
3 sit in the front, 2 in the back. But this particular modification was produced in the Czech Republic, based on the 815th Tatra, the 7th modification at an armored cab. Well, so far, FPV drones haven't hit the cab itself, only the combat section, but it held up. The net worked. It absorbed the impact.
After completing their combat mission, the soldiers hide the cannon in a huge revetment until the next deployment. Lyudmila Sinbalaeva, Solomia Reznik, Army TV. We are Ukraine, Marathon, Uina, United News.
Russia is on fire. Strikes deep inside the terrorist country have become more frequent. Ukraine is reaching a new level. Factories are burning, ammunition is detonating, and the illusion of safety is collapsing. Putin was definitely not prepared for this. Sirens, smoke, and fear. That's what life in Russia is like right now. This is just the beginning. Which important enemy targets are already in the crosshairs of Ukrainian forces? And when might they go up in flames? More details about this in our upcoming report.
For 2 days straight, wave after wave, more than 500 Ukrainian drones attacked Russian military-industrial facilities. This was the largest and longest raid since the start of the full-scale invasion.
This is the tactic of 1,000 cuts.
We didn't have these capabilities even a year ago.
There is a constant, uninterrupted presence in the enemy's airspace.
And our forces were not only striking right at the very heart of Kostyay, Moscow, but also targeting the most sensitive sites, facilities that the Russians have only one of.
We are simply capable of delivering painful blows to the Russians.
It flew over us again. Hope it doesn't hit us. That's a drone! Why isn't the air defense reacting at all? Where are they even looking?
The enemy failed to spot our drones in the capital of Mordovia, Saransk. There we struck the first and only plant for the production of fiber optic systems. Its production capacity is 4 million kilometers of fiber per year. This is where they make fiber optics for enemy frontline drones. So halting production should help our forces on the front lines. Both Saranskabel and Saranskabeloptica were hit.
In Russia, this is the only plant of its kind that supplies fiber optics on a large scale to the front, specifically for the Russian army. According to available information, the plant has temporarily suspended its operations.
So, is the vehicle moving?
Everything's fine, everything's fine. Locals counted at least 7 explosions at the basalt plant in the Moscow region, the main defense enterprise in Russia, where weapons and ammunition are produced for all branches of the military.
Something hit the territory of the plant, and it's on fire.
The burning plant is the only enterprise in Russia that designs and develops multiple launch rocket systems and munitions for the Soln Tsepyok. It was here that the Grad, Uragan and Smerch systems were created. This is one of the top priority weapons manufacturing enterprises in Russia. Our forces also attacked the Instrument Design Bureau in Tula, one of the flagships of the Russian military-industrial complex, which develops high-precision guided weapons.
Now Ukraine is trying to destroy such enterprises, which have no equivalence within the Russian Federation itself. Here we can see a certain tactic, a strategy to destroy enterprises in the Russian Federation that are one of a kind.
And here, for example, is how the Kamaz plant in Tatarstan was burning. Overall, since the beginning of the year, Ukrainian kamikaze drones have attacked more than 24 defense industry enterprises in Russia. To fend off our UAVs, the Russians have deployed their alligators, which means the complexity of drone operations is increasing. Damn, move it!
So it's necessary to avoid not only the anti-aircraft missile positions of the air defense systems, but also to try to stay out of the operational zones of helicopters.
In addition, 2 military airfields were targeted by our forces. The much-publicized Kubinka Air Base in the Moscow region. There, the permanent participants of the victory parade befriended Putin's knights are based, as well as Shaikovka in the Kaluga region. The 222 base with missile depots.
At Shaikovka, in addition to the storage sites for Kh-22 missiles, the storage facilities for fuel and lubricants were also hit.
Hiding from our drones and missiles, the Russians moved their Tu-22s all the way to the Belaya base, near Irkutsk, 5,000 kilometers away. Such a maneuver, firstly, is a blow to their flight resources, and secondly, thought they won't be able to strike from there.
And this is how they are hiding, their planes from strikes on angles so that we can't reach them. But it's unlikely that these planes will pose a threat to us from Irkutsk Oblast. That's just too far, 5,000 kilometers. And they carry their missiles on external mounts. So, in fact, they simply don't have enough range to fly there and back.
It has made a difference that the air defense systems were moved to Moscow. After all, Putin is more important there than the airfields. To protect Moscow, on May 9th, according to various sources, nearly 200 air defense systems were transferred there, including even the experimental S-500. This is an analog of the latest generation American Patriots, put on duty.
We're from the Far East, which is actually close to Japan. They are moving S-300 and S-400 air defense systems closer to the European part of Russia. In the Far East, they're now putting up decoys instead.
Our drones have halted Russian civil aviation. Hundreds of flights have been cancelled. In Russia, not only were the three main airports in the capital closed, which meant Putin's guests could easily have missed the Victory Day celebration, but even the airport in Perm was shut down, and that's more than 200 kilometers from our border.
Russian aviation already has problems of its own, specifically with their planes. And now we're also starting to regulate the flights of Russian aircraft. The losses for the Russians are quite significant. 60,000 passengers have piled up in the airports. Just the financial losses alone, these financial losses have already exceeded the cost of at least a tenth of the drones that were launched.
And as for the fact that fools and roads are Russia's main problems, Nikolai Gogol said that long ago. Without aviation, it's 9,000 kilometers from Moscow to Sakhalin, a week's journey. That's if the road hasn't been washed out, so controlling the regions over such distances is extremely difficult. And airline bankruptcy is looming. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars, according to our aviation expert. And during our drone attack, entire Russian regions were left without mobile service or internet. That's also a significant loss. And everything they've lost will never become bullets or weapons for Putin. Oksana Radzivolova, Volodymyr Ostapenko, and Roman Sishchenko. This is 7 days on 1+1, the United News Marathon.
That's all from me for now. I'm Darina Hutsakalo, and I was with you. Even more scorching news from the front in our next broadcast. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. See you soon.